These are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to SharePoint 2013. We're going to spend the next hour running through some of the new features on SharePoint 2013. My name's Jenny Doris, and I also have here with me Chris Johnson. So, due to the large number of people that we have in this call and our short duration, we're going to spend the hour just going through everything, so we won't have anybody else on audio to talk back to us. However, we will leave it open after the end of the webinar for 15 minutes if anyone has any questions. You'll see an interface on your right-hand side there for controlling the webinar, so feel free to type any questions in there, and then we will look at them and answer them as best we can for you when we get to the end of the webinar here. However, if you have some more detailed questions that you'd like help with, please feel free to contact us afterwards. We're happy to answer them, or we're even happy to set up a demo just for you and your company to talk more about your specific needs and if the SharePoint 2013 interface will work for you. We'll post up all of our contact information for you at the end. All right, so let's get started and talk about SharePoint 2013. First of all, you'll notice that it's going to have a new interface. So basically, you're going to see that it's more tablet friendly. It's going to have things that you could use on a mobile device like your phone as well as like an iPad. It also has extended browser support. So in the past there was always troubles with Safari and Chrome, and now those will work much easier for you in this new interface. As well, there's a new getting started kind of help screen when you first start building a SharePoint site. The nice thing about this is for those people that maybe are not as knowledgeable about building their own site, this will make it a lot easier for them with a lot less training needed. Also, it has HTML5. This replaces the need for Flash, so it can display multimedia without having to have a Flash application. It means that you can play it directly within your site without having to open another window or an application or do any custom programming. And therefore, again, that's going to help it work better with like mobile products and Apple iPads and all that good stuff. It also has drag and drop technology. In the past, it was tough to get documents in and out of libraries. You'd have to upload them or you'd have to download them. And now you can just drag and drop as well as into emails, and we'll take a look at that today. And it has a much cleaner look than it had in the past, again, because it's kind of gearing toward being able to use tablets and more simpler devices that way. So there's also some new features. There's several new features, but of course we can't cover them all in an hour. But some of the key ones is you'll see improved themes and branding. It's a lot easier to change the look and feel of your SharePoint site. There's also a new eDiscovery Center. So if you ever have to go to eDiscovery, usually that is a long, painful process, and there's a new feature that will speed that up for you. As well, there's a new business intelligence and connectivity features, and we'll look at those today. Also, search has changed. It now incorporates fast search, which is basically putting search on steroids for you, and we'll take a look at that. So it's definitely improved in 2013. Also, social computing has changed a lot. So My Sites has changed to be more social networking friendly. There's also now what's called project subsites for those that would like to take project maybe even out of Microsoft Project and just use it in the SharePoint interface and simplify it a little bit, and you now have that option. Workflows have changed. There's a new workflow center to build your workflows. It's a lot easier than before. And now you can even share your site or components of your site with people outside of your network by giving them limited access. So let's take a look at a site. Let me pop up our site here. So first of all, let's take a quick look at the interface. So you're going to notice that you've got, it looks a little bit different. You still have a quick launch menu down the left and a top link bar across the top if you're used to using SharePoint at all. You also still utilize the ribbon. So we still have tabs at the top in the ribbon. So if you've used SharePoint 2010, this is the same similar interface, but you'll notice it's a little bit cleaner now. And I talked about having this Getting Started panel. That's this right here. So it's really easy for someone who's new to SharePoint when they want to build and edit their site to come here, and if they want to create content that's now called apps, they can quickly come in and create their desired content. Also, I talked about themes and branding. So if you want to change the look and feel of your site, it's very easy now. So I'm going to go in here to themes and branding, and you'll notice all these different themes you can choose from. So I'll pick one. And now I can even customize the color scheme of this theme and choose whichever theme color I'd like. And then I just apply it and I'm ready to go. Or I can just cancel it if I don't like it. You'll also notice by looking at this screen that we have our logo as a watermark on the screen, and that's super easy to do. You just upload your logo, you make it a watermark, and that can be your background. So a lot more creative theme without having to get into Designer like you had to in the past. So let's look at the drag and drop feature, because this, I think, is a great new thing. In the past, if you wanted to upload documents to a library, you would have to, go and you'd have to select the documents and choose upload. Then you'd have to, if you want to download them, select them and choose download. And then if you wanted them in an email, that was even more confusing. And how do I get something as an attachment in an email? Now it is super simple. So for example, if I want to take this document, I have a document here on my desktop, and I want to put it into my document library, I'm going to click and drag it. And you'll notice that it immediately pops up a drop here box. So I just let it go, and now notice that that document is right there in my library. Super simple. Same as if I want to take it outside of SharePoint and I want to put a copy on my desktop. It will not move it from the library, it just creates a copy. So I'm going to click on this document, drag it to my desktop, let it go, and there it is. It's still here in my library, but it's on my desktop. Also, emails are great that way. Now, emails in the past were always a challenge with attachments. So let's say I would like an attachment in this email. Again, I'm going to come over here to my document library. Let me grab a document. I'm going to drag it into my email, and there you go. I've stuck an attachment in. Again, it's a copy. I haven't moved it out of the library. I just put a copy in it. So a lot easier with this drag and drop interface than we had in the past. All right. So the next thing we'll look at is the new thing that's called a project site. So now if you would like to make projects simpler, you can take and you can quickly create a subsite that's geared around projects. What you get with that is you get a document library, you get a task list, a calendar, all this stuff is created instantaneously. And then you have a new view for tasks that you can use, which is called a timeline. So you'll notice here we have a timeline, and I can scroll through the different timeline events and see them. So it's a little bit easier, a nice visual way to work with my projects. However, if I go in here to my actual tasks, so I'm here at my tasks, and if I want to add a task to the timeline, no problem. It's pretty simple. I'm going to come down here and choose this task I have, and I'm going to say add it to the timeline, and now it's just popped up in my timeline. And that's just one view of your tasks. You can also take your tasks and you can look at them as a Gantt chart. So if you're used to using project and you like the Gantt chart view, you can quickly use that so that you can now see the predecessors and the actual timeline for each task. And if you do like project, not a problem. As long as you're using Project 2013 with SharePoint 2013, they now completely integrate. So if I come up here, notice that there's a button here on my list tab on the ribbon that says Open with Project. So I can open any of my tasks within Project. They'll map to Project. I can work on them in Project and update them, and they will automatically sync with the SharePoint site. The nice thing about this is now you can use the full-blown project software and then still be viewing it and interacting with it in SharePoint. So, of course, there's lots of interaction with Office products. The project is a new one. But there's also great interaction when you talk about Excel and Excel services and business intelligence. So, Chris, why don't you show us some of that cool stuff?
Thanks, Jenny. Microsoft has made many advances inside of business intelligence with SharePoint 2013. One of the main applications that we use to develop business intelligence reports and interactive charts is Excel. And in Excel 2013, Microsoft has actually taken the BI engine and built it directly into it. This engine with Power Pivot allows you to analyze and crunch millions of lines of data. I have right here an Excel document with quite a bit of data in here, and we're going to go ahead and crunch this information. Power View is built into Excel 2013, and this allows you to visualize and interact with modeled data by using very interesting charts and other graphs. This previously had to be done straight through SharePoint Server, but it now can be done directly inside of Excel and offline as well. What we're looking at is a fictional organization named Contoso, and they have many retail establishments across the world. As you can see, I've got some in Seattle and all across Wisconsin and Colorado. And what we're looking for is a way to display their sales data for analysis. This Excel document is connected to an external access database, but the great thing about Power Pivot is that you can connect it to a very large number of data models, including SharePoint lists, and you're able to crunch that data in whatever way is necessary. So right here I have the Power Pivot view for Excel. And inside here I have quite a bit of data models that I'm actually going to be crunching for you. And let me make this a little larger. And one of the areas that I'm looking at right here is the sales data. And as you can see, I've got over 3.9 million lines of data. You know, back in SharePoint Excel 2010, you really were limited to a little bit over 1 million lines of data that you're able to really crunch. Power Pivot gives you millions and millions and millions of lines of data that you're able to crunch any way that you want to display this content. So it's very easy to start displaying this information and this data into beautiful charts. If you're in your Excel document, all you need to do is simply go to Insert and then Power View. And I actually have one open right here. And then on the right, what you're going to see is all the fields that correlate to a lot of the data models inside of this document. And you know, for this particular situation, I mean, one of the nice things to do is to analyze the total sales across the entire organization, all the stores. So as you can see, I can easily come over in here and I can find a table that actually has the total sales for all of Contoso. If I check this box very quickly without any typing of any formulas, I have over 12 billion in sales across the entire organization. And this is very neat. And you know, we can do a lot with this, but that's really not enough. I mean, I'd like to see how our sales are doing across the entire world, across all of our regions. So using geolocations, which is a new thing with Excel 2013 and SharePoint 2013, I can show all of the locations using Bing Maps across the world. So if at the very top, if I just simply click Map, here we go. And we have a map across the world, and it's kind of nice, but there isn't any data in here because I haven't told it exactly what to chart. Now, over here under the longitude and latitude, I could type in all of this stuff if I had all the information for my locations. But as you know, we normally refer to locations as the country, the city, or the state. So if I come and I take a look at my stores, and one of the areas I already know, I have a data model for the regions for all of the stores. And if I click and drag it down into the locations, very quickly we get quite a bit of information. And for example, the United States, if I hover my mouse over it, it quickly shows me that the United States, of that $12 billion in sales, is accounting for over $7 billion of it. I can hover my mouse over to China. I see that that's at $1.6 billion. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, and it is very interactive, it's very quick, and I'm using Business Intelligence directly inside of Excel. Now, if I get a little bit more granular and I add the states and I add the cities, I can also drill even further. So let's go over to the United States, and if I was to double click, now we're seeing some more information. So of the $7 billion that the United States has made, the state of Washington has made a little bit over $1 billion of that. We have here in Colorado, you know, just under $500,000 or $500 million. And over in Maryland, they've made $2.2 billion. So that's pretty neat. But let's say we wanted to go even further than that. You can double click on Colorado, and we have all the Contoso locations inside of the state of Colorado. So inside of here, I can see that Denver's made $68 million of that. I can see Greeley and Fort Collins and quite a few other things. And again, I can zoom in and out, which is pretty nice. Okay, so all you have to do if you wanted to get out of this view, and again, I can scroll my mouse up and down, but if you wanted to go back up to the state name, I would just simply hit the up arrow, and I'm back up into the states, and I can hit the up arrows again, and I'm back into the top level regions and counties. Now let's take this one step further. I mean, you know, this is nice getting the total sales and everything, but what if I want to break this information down even further based off of the products that have been sold? Once again, all I have to do is just click and drag a table into the view, the Power View over here, and we'll have color-coded charts. So if I come over here and I see my product category data model, and I've got a table in here called product name. If I click and drag this down, I now have a bunch of pie charts showing all of the different sales for all of the different regions. So again, back over in the United States, if I wanted to put my mouse over different things, as you see, home appliances accounted for 2.2 billion of the sales, computers accounted for 1.8 billion of the sales, and you know it's very easy and very quick. As you can see, it's very easy to apply this to your own business. We have an oil and gas company that we're currently doing an implementation for, and they would like to see information on their wells that they have throughout the country. Using their Excel documents and Power View, we can easily do it. Or if you're in the banking industry, you need to show information on your different branches or other items. It's very easy to do this without any IT intervention at all. Now keep in mind, we just did all of this work within Excel. This was all offline. You could do this on a plane, and this did not require any SharePoint at all. However, when it comes to collaborating and wanting to display this information, instead of emailing these large documents to users within the organization, we can use Excel services to display this data within SharePoint and let the servers do the number crunching. So if I come back into SharePoint and I bring this up, this is Excel services. And this is the exact same document inside of SharePoint with a few more charts that we were just working on. And we'll let this crunch a second. And bear with me 1 second, it'll come up. There we go. My apologies. So I have a standard chart below that shows the sales visually. You know, you can see that it's completely interactive, just as if I was in Excel. I can click on things and change any items. I can come back over here to the maps view, and I can double click inside of here, and I can zoom in and do quite a few things that I was doing inside of Excel. Also, let's say that this view isn't big enough for you. I mean, you wanted to go and see this a little bit larger. You know, you can pop this directly out, and you can interact with the entire map right inside of your SharePoint farm. I am on the internet right now. One of the other nice things is I can create a bubble chart, which is what I have right over here. And inside this bubble chart, I have another breakdown of all my products inside of my my organization, my sales organization. So if I wanted to see, you know, home appliances, then, computers, I have a bunch of computer accessories, laptops, and things like that. And I could see exactly how the returns over time, if I press play, how they reflect in my organization. Okay? So the other thing is, you know, many times we want our users to create their own Power Views and reports and charts, but we don't really want them to go about changing the data. And Microsoft has a nice Power Pivot gallery that will allow you to do this. I have a Power Pivot gallery created right here, and inside here you can see that I can scroll through here, I can quickly open documents, and I can interact with the spreadsheets and create different views as if I had Excel open. If this view isn't doing it enough for me, I can easily select Open in Excel, and I have the entire weight of Excel behind me. But this is all throughout the web, throughout the internet. Okay? There's also another view that will allow you to interact with these spreadsheets if you're inside of a mobile application. So if I come back over to the Power Pivot and I select Library, and I can change this view. In the theater view, if I'm on an iPad, if I'm on a tablet device, if I'm on anything like that, I can easily scroll through and once again click on documents and open them directly inside of Excel. Okay? So you can see the power of Excel services, and there's other services including Visiographic services, performance point services that have been made, that major advances have been made inside of SharePoint 2013. Other advances made come in the form of search. Now in 2010, in SharePoint 2010, there was an add-on product called Fast Search. And what this essentially did was, as Jenny mentioned earlier, it took your search infrastructure and really enhanced it greatly, essentially put it on steroids. And it gave you thumbnails when you search documents and great granularity. Well, in 2013, many of the features of Fast is built into SharePoint Search. As you can see, if I search for the word T, which we have a few documents that have that word, I quickly get some information that pop up, and I can hover over these documents, and I can see when the document was last modified, the contributors, and I could also send, and I can also view it in the library, which is very nice and new. If I click View in Library, it will open up the actual SharePoint library where it's located, and that's where I can interact with that. One of the other nice things is if my search results came up with a website, so I'm going to search web. If my search results came up with a website and I hover over these websites, it shows me a frozen picture of exactly what that website looks like. And again, I can go and click and open the website and follow it and do a lot of other neat things with it. Microsoft's also made changes to the My Sites feature. I'm logged in down here onto the site as Peyton Manning, and as you can see his interactive newsfeed. And in here you can post updates, share documents, you can like and reply to comments. It's a great morale booster, and it also helps promote collaboration within your business. And as you can see, John Elway made a statement. I can click like. I can reply to it. I can also very easily follow different users and interact with them quite easily.
So it's a lot like a Facebook site.
It's a lot like a Facebook site. Some of the other features inside of here you have is SkyDrive Pro. This is built directly into SharePoint as well. What SkyDrive is Microsoft's cloud solution software similar to Dropbox, but this is contained within your organization. This will allow users to synchronize their files from their computers and mobile devices directly into their private My Site for viewing and sharing. And you also have the click and drag. You can also click and drag inside of here as well. Okay? Lastly, there's a unified tasks section. Many times with Outlook and Project and SharePoint, we have tasks all over the place. And Microsoft introduced a new service application that will take all of this and aggregate your tasks into one section rather than having to hunt around into many different places. Now, as you saw, that was the very first time I went in here, and it says I have 2 new tasks. Jenny earlier created a couple of tasks, and here they are right here. I can open my tasks directly from here, and it takes me straight into the project site, and I can interact with this any way that I need to. Makes it a lot easier so we don't have to hunt for all of our tasks in many different locations. Okay. One other great feature inside of SharePoint 2013 is the eDiscovery Center. And in SharePoint 2010, Microsoft added the ability to put your documents and SharePoint sites on hold so you can so managers could prevent users from deleting or editing those documents. However, in SharePoint 2013, there are new ways to interact with this. So if we go into the eDiscovery Center, what you can see here is a page that can be modified and designed, whatever it is that you want to do with this. And whatever branding that your organization may have. And if I click on the cases location, I have a couple of different cases in here. Depending on your organization, you may have hundreds of these. But inside of here, once you select it, you're presented with many options. You're in your Identify and Hold section. You have a Search and Export section. And inside of here, you're able to view any of the sources that you have put on hold. So users, if they went in here and they were to delete anything or to modify anything, it doesn't matter because you actually have it on hold and you're able to then send that information over for legal review. You're able to quickly disable an in-place hold if you don't need that either as well. Once you have your in-place hold and it's time to get the discovery for it and it's time to filter that information out, you can go into Search and Export and you have other further queries that you're able to do. You're able to do this with Exchange and SharePoint. So you can put mailboxes on hold. So you put in further queries, and once you do that and you find your information, you would simply export those documents to a zip file, and then it would go over to a lawyer or whoever for review, so they're able to look into that. And then Jenny is going to talk about further what we have inside of workflows.
Great. So workflows has completely changed. The interface to use workflow is a little bit different. It's tough to demo a workflow for you, basically, because we'd have to be logging in and out as different users. So I'll talk through a sample workflow that you could do in SharePoint pretty easily now, especially in the new Workflow Center. Basically, let's say you have vacation requests. Most companies have this, and we're going to make it automated. So an employee would go ahead and go to SharePoint. They'd click on the vacation requests form, open that up, fill it out, and save it. As soon as they save it, they can have it set up so that it automatically will kick off an email to the manager alerting them that this request has been submitted by one of their employees. So then what happens is the manager opens it up. It comes right in email. They click a link. It opens up the request right there. They don't even have to go to SharePoint. And then they can approve or reject it. So let's say that the manager then rejects it. If they do, the employee immediately gets an email. If they approve it, it can then immediately kick off another step in the workflow and go to, let's say, the HR site. Maybe HR has a tracking list for employees' vacation, and it might deduct the vacation automatically from that list in SharePoint for the employee's vacation time. And then we can say maybe after that it also goes and adds it to a company calendar for all the vacations. And then finally, after all that, the employee is also automatically emailed that their request has been approved. So it's a real simple one, but it's very easy to do that in SharePoint. A great thing about workflows is they can be automated, where their forms pop up, where lists are automatically updated, and then people are notified back and forth. It's one of the beauties of workflows.
And one of the other cool things with SharePoint 2013 is the support for mobile devices. SharePoint 2010 was somewhat supported, but 2013 takes it to a whole new level. With SharePoint 2013, with your Android, your Apple devices, and even your Windows Phone devices, of course, there's push notifications, so you can set up a list that will automatically send a notification to your mobile device that somebody's either updated it, deleted something, or changed something. You can also now interact and view a lot of business intelligence content through your mobile devices. Performance point services, Excel services, reports, other analytical data. You can view all of this stuff and interact with it nicely inside of your iPads and your iPhones, your Android phones, and the like. Office web apps is completely supported on your mobile devices. If your organization installs Office web apps into your SharePoint 2013 environment, it's very nice to be able to, on your mobile device, wherever you're at, be able to look at an Excel document or Word document, make changes to it, and save it directly back into your SharePoint farm. Lastly, there's quite a bit of support for different views on your mobile devices. Jenny spoke earlier about HTML5. SharePoint is built completely on HTML5, which is the newest and greatest technology for web development. And if you have a recent cell phone, an iPhone, one of the later Android devices, and Windows Phone 8 devices, they will be able to view all of this rich content right within their web browser. However, Microsoft didn't kill support for any of the older devices. If you have an older device that isn't on HTML5, you aren't left out either. There is a classic view that will allow you to look at the content and still interact with it. And then finally, you're able to also look at a full screen UI on any of your mobile devices, provided they support those.
Great. So a lot of very cool new stuff. I'll say this, so a lot of people are thinking about SharePoint. Some may not have even gone to SharePoint yet, and we get asked a lot, should we even consider SharePoint? Or is it one of those technologies that's going to be here this year and gone next year? Well, SharePoint's really been around since 2000, and some interesting statistics now. 78% of Fortune 500 companies have SharePoint. It's a pretty large number, and they actually say now 1 in every 5 knowledge workers, so many of those people that use computers and whatnot, actually have access to SharePoint now. And also, this is a staggering statistic that every single day for over the past 5 years, 20,000 new workers have joined the ranks of SharePoint users. So it's definitely a popular program. Is it right for you if you are not already on it, or is the upgrade right for you? Also, how do you make sure that if you are upgrading that you are, doing it effectively? We get called in a lot for a lot of site rescues. Help, or no one's using our site, or it's not built right, or things aren't working. So there's 8 key points that we find that will help, that can make your installation go wrong, and things you can do to correct it so it goes right. So let's get through those real quick. How to know when it goes well. So if you're upgrading, or if you're going to SharePoint for the first time, one of the first ways an installation can go wrong is you don't know SharePoint. So SharePoint is a pretty diverse product, and it touches a lot of different technology. And all too often what happens is an IT department or even just an internal IT pro is tasked with setting up SharePoint, and they're tasked with managing it. And like I said, it's very complex. It's different than what most IT pros use. So you can't do the regular default out-of-the-box install of SharePoint, at least not if you want it to work correctly. So the SharePoint platform touches on a bunch of different technologies. You have to know some SQL, some DNS, some Active Directory. You might need some custom code. So, and how do I configure search correctly? Because you need to know SharePoint's idiosyncrasies and custom settings as well. Because a successful migration to SharePoint, it's going to depend on a team that understands all of this. You can't just do an out-of-the-box install default kind of setting. You need to make sure it's done right the first time. If you need outside help because everyone doesn't have that internally, that's fine. You just want to get it set up correctly the first time so it runs smoothly into the future. The other reason why installations go wrong is they're built in a vacuum.
Yeah, one of the things that we see quite a bit is IT is controlling the entire SharePoint organization. One of the things that to be aware of is that SharePoint should completely be monitored by IT, but managed and owned by the business. SharePoint is a tool to be used throughout your business and should be driven by the users. I like to use a house analogy where the IT department, we are very much in control of the foundation or control of the walls that go up and the rooms that are built inside of that house. However, the users should be in control of the paint that goes on the walls, the furniture that gets arranged inside of that house, and the pictures that get hung up. So we should definitely be delegating a lot of our responsibilities out to the users because that is exactly what SharePoint was built to do.
Yeah, and also, you need to consider the user experience, and you need to build the interface so that it's more intuitive, so it's easier and intuitive to use, because SharePoint has to be built with the user experience in mind. Just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to come, right? So if it's more complicated or takes longer to use and figure out, users are going to resent the site, and ultimately what's going to happen is they're going to bypass it altogether and go back to their old methods, which is obviously not what we want. The other thing that tends to go wrong in installations is that you thought training was optional. And, I think one of the biggest failures of SharePoint implementation is not providing training. It needs to be mandatory to drive adoption in your organization, even if it's just an upgrade in SharePoint, because there's changes. Training goes further than just making sure that the employees know how to use it. It's going to help with your overall change management and how they ultimately are going to adopt this new platform. And without it, you're ensuring that you're actually going to have a struggle in getting a successful company-wide rollout and integration, especially into the day-to-day business tasks and productivity of the users. Otherwise, like I said earlier, they're going to go back to their old bad habits or create workarounds rather than using the most effective method. So the other reason installation go wrong is people hate the change. So if there's no change management planning, you're going to have some issues there. And unfortunately, if you're one of the people who brings SharePoint or the SharePoint upgrade to your organization, you're already the bad guy. Even if you're just upgrading from 2010 to 2013, employees will feel like, you've added more work, and they have to learn how to use this new interface, and it's just one more struggle in their daily business life. And they won't see the advantages of the upgrade. They're going to see it as another thing that the IT department's pushed on them. However, it's easy to make this less painful with some simple change management and some simple planning when you roll it out. Another way installations can go wrong is that you ignored making a new architecture, meaning that if you put garbage in, that's what you're going to get out of it. If you take your old infrastructure and just plug it into the new interface of SharePoint 2013, you're missing the full benefits of going to 2013. Dumping an old database into the new format, you might get a couple benefits, but you're not going to get the full benefit of upgrading. Why even upgrade? You might have better search capabilities, but is it really going to be easier to search for documents if you use the same old tired file folder structure when you don't need that? So you want to take time to rethink the architecture before you upgrade so it doesn't crumble on you in the future. And the other way that installation can go wrong is no governance in planning. When people hear the word governance, they think it's this big, long, intensive thing they have to do. It doesn't have to be overdone or difficult, but you want to have some basic planning and governance to ensure your site grows the way you want it. So basically, it's basic guidance for the migration or how end users are going to use it. You want to think about what are the different permissions and who can edit what. or what types of data, and should it be stored in SharePoint even? Or are there naming conventions, or are you going to use versions, or is there going to be an archive plan? Just some of the things you want to consider as you're upgrading or even going to SharePoint for the first time.
One of the other things that really affect SharePoint installations is that many users think of it, or excuse me, many IT departments think of it as a one-off project. SharePoint tends to be kicked off as a project, but it's an evolving system to run and grow with your business. There's updates that have to be done, and many times I see organizations that will go into SharePoint thinking document management, but then as they grow and they evolve within the SharePoint infrastructure, they realize, okay, well, we want to do some business intelligence, or we want to look into doing some stuff with my sites, and it is a constant evolving product, and it is never ever done.
Great. So those are where it can go wrong. So what are the components to make sure that you do have a successful installation? There's really 4 key components. The first is design. So within your design, you want to make sure you have good governance, you have planning, you have the architecture design, and you know what your end user interface is going to be like. You also need to think about branding. What's your corporate image, and how is your site going to match that? And then what's your governance as well along your branding lines. And then for training, critical. You want to make sure you have end user training as well as, power users or site editors, those people that are going to build and manage those sites after the server's been set up. And then lastly, you need ongoing and good IT administration. Everything from your server to your security to your backup to your integrations to, as Chris was saying, what's the ongoing growth and constant monitoring of the site.
One of the other decisions to make when you're putting in SharePoint is whether or not to host it or not in the cloud. Microsoft's solution, Office 365, is a great one, but it's not necessarily for everybody. Some of the things that you want to take into account is the storage size. How much data are you going to be planning on storing inside of your SharePoint farm? How many items are in each document library? Office 365 has a hard document list list limit that you cannot increase. If you had an installation on-premise, you can increase that to whatever it is you want. One other thing to think about is the number of users, because that, of course, goes into licensing, both on-prem and whether or not you're in Office 365. Other things are integration and customization needs. Now, Office 365, it's great. It does allow you to do quite a bit of customization, quite a bit of development. However, if you need to get really, really down into the nuts and bolts of things, and you need to mess with the databases, you can't do that with Office 365. You need an on-premise installation. However, another feather in the Office 365 cap is the cost of hardware. Office 365 is very quick, very easy to get set up. You're up and running in a matter of minutes. Whereas if you do an on-prem installation, you have the cost of hardware, licensing for software, licensing for operating systems, and then of course you have to deal with the installation and working on that as well. So whatever your business needs are will need to be determined before you decide which way to go on SharePoint installation.
Great. So that's some of the new features of 2013. Obviously, there's tons of them. We could, go on for hours about it. But if you'd like to, if you have more questions, we'll actually take some questions right now. So if you have a question, feel free to type it in the interface, and we'll try to answer those and even show you some stuff on SharePoint if we can. However, our contact information is also here as our phone number and extension. And feel free to call us, or you can also email Stephen Nichols, and we can answer more questions for you. Or like I said, if you'd like us to just come on site and give you a free demo around, maybe if it will work for your specific business or not, that's fine. And then if you just want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at Just Tips. So in the meantime, now let's open up for questions. Let me see what we've got here. So let's see. So for search, it says the pop-up that showed metadata, such as when it was modified and created by, can that pop-up be customized to display other associated metadata?
Absolutely.
So the nice thing about SharePoint is you can customize all of the metadata in your document libraries, etc. So in this, Chris said, in the search, you can do that as well. Also, we have a question: has the group resource calendar changed? Henry, I'm not quite sure what you mean. So meaning using, if we create a calendar or using a resource calendar within SharePoint. I have not, tested if I haven't seen any major calendar updates. It still does the same connecting with Outlook, and I haven't seen any resource changes to that per se. And then let's see, can you talk about Power Pivot and the other byproducts more? So yeah, we'll talk about Power Pivot a little more. They're very, very cool, and of course, to get them to integrate with SharePoint, you want to all be in 2013, but Chris can definitely talk about it some more.
Some of the other, I mean, the business intelligence model for SharePoint, it covers a vast array of products, and you know, a lot of them may seem to overlap each other, but you can definitely, based on whatever it is you're trying to display, you know, you find the correct tool for yourself. Again, I mentioned performance point services. Performance point services will allow you to display dashboards and key performance indicators inside of a SharePoint, inside of a SharePoint window. Visiographic services will allow you to display visiographics directly inside of SharePoint and interact with them, which is pretty cool. Again, you have the Excel services, and you also have the business connectivity services, which will allow you to connect with your line of business data to further crunch those numbers and analyze and display that data for, you know, many of your users to see.
Great. Another question is, you stated that SharePoint 2013 works better in non-IE browsers now, and are you able to have full functionality in other browsers, or is it limited similar to Outlook Anywhere?
Ryan, there is quite a bit. Microsoft is officially supporting Chrome, Firefox, Safari. Now, I think we all know that it does work definitely better with Internet Explorer. Drag and drop, for example, as you can see, we were using Internet Explorer, and that is because it's only supported in IE. But there is quite a bit of functionality built into the other ones. I can email you later on with an actual white paper that shows, it's actually not even a white paper, it's a chart that will actually show the things you can and can't do inside of all four of the major browsers, IE, Firefox, Chrome, and Windows Safari, or excuse me, Apple Safari.
And then Maureen, you asked about if we can go through the templates again. Could you type real quick, do you mean the templates for Excel services and the BI stuff, or are you talking about templates for design? If you could just type that in real quick, then we'll go back and we'll show you whichever specific one you're looking for. In the meantime, we'll answer Josh's question. Can it be integrated with Active Directory? Absolutely.
Yeah, Josh, I wouldn't even recommend doing SharePoint without an Active Directory infrastructure. I'm trying to think if you can do a standalone installation of SharePoint without an Active Directory domain, and I honestly, I cannot recall. SharePoint is completely integrated with Active Directory. There's quite a few things that you would do with authentication, and there's Open Authentication, or OAuth, that is also inside of SharePoint 2013 that we can, I mean, the sky is truly the limit. But yeah, SharePoint will integrate with Exchange. That's a big one. It integrates with your Active Directory. It integrates with SQL. It'll integrate with Project Server. It takes all of Microsoft's technologies and really dumps it and creates a nice collaborative view. You could even take some of the other products if you're into system configuration, System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM. That integrates with SharePoint. You know, there's quite a few things. The sky's the limit.
Okay, great. And then Dave, you asked about the points you highlighted about workflows are currently available in 2010. Absolutely. The sample workflow I talked through was. Are there any significant improvements in 2013? Yeah,
Dave, I can speak to you a little bit offline about that. I'll get quite technical, but they did completely change the workflow engine in 2013. It is a completely separate installation. In 2010, it just came with it. It just was integrated inside of SharePoint. But now in 2013, they actually have two. They have a SharePoint 2010 workflow engine and the 2013 workflow engine. I will email you after this. I have your email. I'll email you a diagram that shows the differences. There's quite a few.
Great. And then Jerry talked about, do you know when 365 will have the 2013 version?
Office 365 right now actually has 2013 if you are a new customer. I know that's a poor answer, but if you're a new customer, you get Office 365 with Office 2013, Exchange 2013, Link 2013, and SharePoint 2013. However, if you are currently an Office 365 customer, Microsoft is doing upgrades over the next few months.
Great. Let's see. We've got, is it possible to upgrade from 2007 to 2013 directly without having to go through 2010?
Good question, Josh. No. You have to go either from 2007 to 2010 and then to 2013, or you have to use some sort of a third-party product to do it. The reason for this is because in SharePoint 2013, they've deprecated the classic modes authentication. It's all claims now. And that gets a little bit technical, but the short answer is you have to go to 2010 first and then 2013 without using a third-party product.
Great. And Patrick, that's your question for email. Yes, we can send it to you too. Another question is, what limitations are there in using Office 2010 with SharePoint 2013?
Well,
one question, but it is true.
there's Microsoft publishes a white paper with all of their versions of SharePoint, and you know, Office 2010 does have some limitations with 2013. I couldn't sit here and tell you every single one of them. The biggest one, however, is that Office 2013 is built for the cloud. So you'll see that it defaults to save into SkyDrive. You can save directly into SharePoint and all of these other things. One of the other biggest limitations is Excel. I mentioned earlier that Excel has Power Pivot built directly into it, whereas in Excel 2010 it was an add-on that you had to download. In Excel 2013 you have Power View that comes with it. In Excel 2010 it does not exist. It was server side only. So there are quite a few differences, all of which we haven't found yet, but they're the
integration project you couldn't do.
Yes,
yeah.
But Office 2010 will work very well with SharePoint 2013. It just won't work as great as Office 2013.
Not 100%, yeah. Another question, what parts of the things you demoed are available in 2010 or previous versions? So everything that we demoed are new in SharePoint. Even if it's not a new feature, it's now changed and it's a little bit different, like search, having fast search. But some things are still available in 2010. They're just, they operate a little differently than they used to.
Yeah, you know, I showed the Power Pivot gallery. That was available inside of that was available inside of SharePoint 2010. However, the theater view and a little bit of that stuff, that is pretty brand new. A lot of the nuts and bolts, the back end stuff is all brand new. The My Sites, you know, there was My Sites in 2010. It's, you know, you saw the new interface. It is completely redone and cleaned up quite a bit.
Yeah. Another question, to look at the project page a little bit more. So let's take a look at that. Let me get to our site here. And basically, we're going to go back to the demo site and we're going to look at that project page, because it definitely has, it's a new feature. Now, you could have tasks in the past. I mean, that was in SharePoint 2010. But now creating a project subsite, if you know for a fact you want a site that is around the project, in just a couple mouse clicks, you create a project subsite. And it already adds documents, tasks, a calendar, all the tools you need to start working on a project. You can certainly customize it and add a bunch more, but it'll actually, you know, make it quick and easy for you to get started. Also, this timeline that you see here, this is brand new. So this timeline you did not have in the past, and being able to add tasks to it, super simple. And you can populate this, and you can decide yourself if you want the task on the timeline or not. So you can have tasks that don't display. So if I actually go to the real task page here, I can create a new task. So I'll just add a new one, and we're going to call it webinar. And I'm going to give it a future date, since my timeline has a bunch of future stuff on it. And we'll say our webinar is going to run for a while. Maybe we're planning for it. So I'll set an end date. And then you'll notice when I'm filling out my task, I don't have a lot of fields. This is also new in SharePoint 2010. There's a show more option. So you'll have your basic fields visible, but if you want to expand the form, you can show more. The nice thing too about 2013 is all of these SharePoint forms are now easily modified with an info path. They all kind of connect to info paths. So if you decide you want to edit your form, you can do it right in info path, which gives you a little bit more functionality than the past. And then also, this is another cool thing in tasks. I know these are small items, but to me, they're big, nice changes. If I'm going to assign this to someone, so let's say I want to give this to Peyton Manning, the nice thing now is I start typing his name, and it pops up a list that matches. In the past, you used to have to type in their specific username or else do a search for it, and then you'd have to have it, you know, reconcile and check it. Now you don't have to do that. It'll actually hyperlink and pop up for you. And I can even create predecessors to this if I want, because that'll show up in my Gantt chart. And then when I save that task, I now have it down here on my task list. So there's my webinar. And if I decide I want to add it to my timeline because it's not there by default, I just come down here, I click on that little edit button, and then I'm going to click add to timeline. Now, because I assigned this to Peyton Manning, it automatically went to the My Sites for Peyton, which, again, as Chris was saying, that's a brand new feature as well. And I could have multiple task lists on multiple subsites. So maybe I have a task list on this project site. Maybe I have another task list on the main site. Or maybe I manage several projects, and every project subsite has tasks assigned to me. I can quickly just, once they're assigned to me, go to my sites and see them all aggregated together, which is a huge feature. You can also integrate them with Outlook, but then you're still looking at them as separate projects broken up. So now you can combine them all together in one easy place on your My Sites. All right, so let's see. Do we have any other questions here? Can we talk about the way that tasks and calendar events integrate with Outlook? Yeah, it's super simple to do. The nice thing about any task or any calendar item is you basically can come to the quick launch, or to the to the ribbon up on the top. Thank you, and click on the list tab, and then there's a sync to Outlook button, and basically you can click on that, and it'll pop up your Outlook, and you'll have to say yes 5 times and tell Microsoft you agree. I'm going to say sync my task, say OK, because Microsoft's overprotective. And it's going to pop up in Outlook, and what it does is it puts it in your other tasks or your other calendars folders. So you can have multiple calendars as well. Let's see if it's connecting. I'm not getting a pop-up here. Yes. And it's still not connecting. It's connecting slowly today because we have the webinar open, so I think it's lagging a little bit. But what will happen is it'll pop up right here in Tasks, and it will appear as another task list, and it will say it's the SharePoint task list. So then let's see. We also have another question here that says, we need basic training of SharePoint. Do you have online options for classes in Denver? We do most of our classes in our training center, but we can certainly do an online version if you would like training for your folks in another location. We do that as well. So because unfortunately you need training. Love to say it's one of those intuitive things, you don't need it, but it's important. But yeah, we've done a combination of training. You can do it virtual, you can do it on site, and we can do either for editors or power users that are going to manage your site, or if you're going to just do training and you want it for your end users, you might consider doing e-learning, because we do a lot of e-learning development for, okay, how do I upload documents? And the nice thing about that is then it future-proofs you, so when you have onboarding for new hires, you can just plug them into the videos that you have. So some more options for you. Let's see, any other questions that we have here? Is your training center in Denver? Yes, our training center is in Denver, and we also have, we have 2 in Denver. We have one down in the Tech Center area and then one downtown Denver as well. And we do get a lot of people that fly in for classes, so apparently SharePoint's a hot training topic regionally, and that we don't have enough places, I think, around here. So any other questions that anybody has for us? If not, we'll wrap up, but we'll stay on for a couple more minutes. If anyone has any additional questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And if not, thank you so much for joining us for the webinar. And again, please feel free to reach out to us if you have more questions later or would like to chat one-on-one.
And Patrick, one other thing too. Yes, we will email. I'll email that information to you about the workflow, that document diagram, because that is. It will explain it quite a bit more, and I don't want to get too technical on this call, but it is a workflow manager. It involves a little bit of PowerShell typing to get it all configured, but I've used it quite a bit since they released it, and it is quite impressive.
All right. Thanks everyone. We appreciate your time. Have fun with your new SharePoint sites.
Thanks.